The watch begins in stillness. Inside the quiet of the guardroom, where the stone walls hold the day's warmth, the watchman prepares for his long night upon the walls. The air is hushed. The soft glow of a single torch flickers in its iron bracket, casting long shadows that sway upon the worn flags of the floor. The room smells faintly of smoke and the oil used to keep the weapons gleaming. He stands before the oak table, its surface scored with years of use, and draws his cloak about his shoulders. The cloak is heavy, thick wool dyed the deep grey of the castle's own stones, and as he fastens it at the throat with a simple clasp, he feels its weight settle evenly across his back. The nights are cold upon the ramparts, even in summer, for the wind moves freely above the world there. He takes up his belt and settles it about his waist. The sword that hangs from it is not an ornament, but neither does he expect to use it tonight. It is polished, well kept, and silent as he checks the leather binding of the hilt and ensures it sits secure in its scabbard. From a hook nearby, he lifts the small iron lantern and opens its latch. Inside, the candle is new, trimmed, and ready for its slow, steady burn. He lights it from the torch with careful hands, then closes the door of the lantern so that only thin blades of warm light slip through the cut iron pattern. The watchman checks his pouch. The ring of keys within, each one cool and solid beneath his fingertips. They will open the postern gates, the smaller doors that lead to hidden places within the castle walls, though he hopes to use none of them tonight. Satisfied, he lowers the pouch against his hip and lets it rest there with familiar weight. His boots are sturdy and worn from years of such nights. He pulls the hood of his cloak a little forward over his brow and lifts the latch upon the door. The iron handle feels cool in his grasp. Beyond, the night awaits, vast and deep, yet hushed and still. The door swings wide with a low groan and the air changes at once. Gone is the close warmth of the guardroom. In its place comes the breath of the open sky, cool and edged with the scent of damp stone and far fields. The darkness of the night is not absolute, for above him the stars scatter their cold brilliance across the heavens, and the lantern in his hand gives its own modest circle of light, falling gently upon the worn stones of the passageway before him. He steps out. The sound of his boots upon the stone flags is steady and unhurried. Each footfall is softened by the cloak's hem that brushes against his legs. The passage is narrow, hemmed by high walls that rise on either side, their surfaces rough with age, wearing the marks of centuries of wind and weather. His shadow leans long upon one wall, bending and shifting as the lantern sways gently in his grasp. Ahead, the passage climbs toward the outer wall. He walks without haste, for there is no cause for hurry. The watch stretches long before him, a slow procession of hours beneath the stars, and his task is not to conquer time, but to move through it quietly, like the moon gliding across the sky. As he ascends, the sounds of the castle's heart fade into stillness. There is no clatter from the kitchens now, no voices in the hall. The day has folded itself away, and only a handful of lives stir beyond their dreams. Another guard at the far gate, perhaps, or the stable boy sleeping in the hayloft, lulled by the breathing of the horses. He reaches the first landing where the wall walk begins. Here the stones open to the night and the sky presses close. He pauses beneath the shelter of an arch, letting the lantern's light spill softly around him. Beyond its glow lies the hush of the fields, their lines faintly traced by silver where the moonlight strikes upon the river's curve. The distant forest is a dark mass at the horizon, its trees holding their secrets in silence. Above, the battlements stand like teeth against the sky, each merlon and embrasure cut sharp in the cold clarity of starlight. A breath of wind drifts along the wall, lifting the edge of his cloak so that it whispers against his boots. The lantern flickers gently, and with that flicker the shadows upon the stones shift and sway as though the night itself were breathing. He draws the hood a little closer about his face and steps out onto the wall walk. Here the stones beneath his feet are smooth with age, worn by the tread of countless boots through years unnumbered. His own footsteps join that long memory now, their quiet rhythm blending with the soft sigh of wind that moves along the rampart's length. To his left, the battlement rises in a low parapet, its top level broken by regular gaps through which the night stretches, vast and open. Beyond those gaps, the land spreads outward, dim and gentle in the moon's pale glow, a patchwork of fields and hedges, the faint gleam of water where a stream winds its course, the deeper shadow of the forest massing beyond. Here and there, a solitary tree lifts its bare arms toward the sky like a sentinel carved in darkness. To his right, the castle looms in quiet majesty. Towers rise like watchful giants, their turrets and spires cutting shapes against the sky. Between them, the roofs of lesser buildings lie in darkness, their angles softened by the silver wash of moonlight. From a few narrow windows, faint threads of firelight still glow, perhaps the chamber of a lord who lingers wakeful, or the small room of a servant tending to some late task. Yet these are but pinpricks of warmth in a vast sea of shadow, and the watchman moves on, his lantern tracing a slow arc of light that slides over the stones with every step. He breathes deeply of the night air. It is cool, touched with the scent of damp earth rising from the fields beyond the walls, mingled with the faint tang of iron from the lantern's frame and the woolen warmth of his cloak. Above all drifts the faint resinous trace of torches, for here and there along the wall the flames still burn, their light casting restless gleams upon the stone and sending threads of smoke twisting upward like ghostly ribbons. The watchman passes one such torch now. Its flame leaps softly in the breeze, golden against the dark, and its warmth brushes his face as he draws near. For a moment, the light of the torch and the glow of the lantern mingle, and his shadow dances tall upon the wall. Then the torch falls behind him and its glow dwindles into a spark before the night folds it away. The path ahead curves gently, following the line of the wall. He moves unhurriedly, lantern swinging in his grasp, boots whispering against stone. Each step carries him deeper into the watch, yet nothing changes quickly here. The world has sunk into stillness, and time flows like honey, slow and smooth, each drop lingering before it falls. As he walks, he listens. The sounds are few, and that is as it should be. The hush of the wind, the faint stir of his cloak, the muted creak of leather as he shifts his weight, these are companions enough. Now and then a distant note drifts upward from the dark, perhaps the soft hoot of an owl hunting along the forest edge, or the far-off bark of a fox calling to its mate. These sounds do not trouble him. They belong to the night, as natural as the moon that rides serene above the world. He reaches a bend in the wall and pauses. Here the stones broaden into a small platform where a watchpost stands, sheltered by a low roof of timber. Beneath it, a bench rests against the inner wall, its surface scarred and smooth with long years of use. He sets the lantern upon the bench and rests his hands upon the cold parapet, gazing out across the sleeping land. The fields lie quiet, silvered by the moon. No smoke curls from any cottage hearth, for all the folk are long since abed. The river gleams where it winds its lazy course, a pale ribbon in the dark. Beyond it the forest crowds close, a silent army of trees holding their watch beneath the stars. Nothing stirs among them save the slow breathing of the wind through branches. He listens a while, but hears nothing amiss. The world is folded deep in slumber, and he feels himself drawn into that stillness, though his eyes remain wakeful and his limbs steady. That is the way of the watch, to become part of the silence, to move within it as gently as a shadow, to let the hours glide past like clouds across a summer sky. When he is ready, he lifts the lantern once more and turns along the wall, leaving the watchpost behind. Ahead, the battlements stretch into darkness, their line broken by the shapes of towers that rise like solemn sentinels against the stars. The nearest of these is the East Tower, its crown lifting high above the wall, its arrow slits black as ink. Toward this he walks, slow and sure, the lantern's glow touching each stone in turn before surrendering it to the night. The watchman moves onward, the lantern swinging gently in his hand, sending small ripples of light across the stones. The East Tower looms nearer, its shadow stretching long and thin beneath the silver eye of the moon. The path between is quiet, bordered on one side by the low parapet with its jagged rhythm of merlons, and on the other by the great inward slope of the castle walls, sheer and massive, their stones rough-hewn and cool to the touch. The night air clings close to these walls, carrying the faint mineral scent of damp stone. Here and there threads of ivy cling to the joints, their leaves dark and still against the pale wash of moonlight. The watchman's boots strike softly against the flagstones, their cadence steady and unhurried, like the beating of a heart at rest. He knows these stones well, for he has trodden them many times before. Their surface is worn smooth by centuries of feet, by the countless patrols of those who stood watch before him, their lives folded now into the silence of the grave. Yet the wall endures, and the duty endures, passing from one hand to the next like the lantern's flame passed from guard to guard. Above, the sky deepens into a rich and endless velvet, embroidered with the silver of stars. The moon drifts serenely, her light flowing like milk across the land. No cloud mars her path tonight. The heavens are clear and vast, and in their immensity the watchman feels both small and steady, as though he were but one note in a song that began before memory and will linger long after his voice is hushed. He draws near the East Tower and feels the breath of wind shift as it curls about the great buttresses. Here the wall widens slightly, for the tower thrusts outward from its face, a bulwark of stone rising in solid majesty. Its door is set deep in shadow beneath an arch of ponderous strength, the iron-bound timbers closed fast and barred within. Above the arch, the narrow slit of an arrow loop cuts a dark line against the paler stone. Higher still, the tower climbs toward its crenellated crown, where the torches gleam like watchful eyes. Their flames stir gently in the breeze, painting the parapet with molten gold and flinging brief sparks that fade before they fall. The watchman halts before the door and lowers his lantern so that its glow licks along the massive hinges, black with age yet strong as ever. He lays a hand upon the wood. It is cold, unyielding, scarred with countless marks where the grain has split and weather has worn its course. The iron studs gleam faintly in the mingled light of torch and lantern, like dim stars fallen to earth. He listens. Beyond the door lies the hollow heart of the tower, a spiral stair winding upward through gloom to the turret above. No sound comes from within save the faint sighing hush that belongs to empty places. He tries the latch, though he knows it will not stir. It holds fast, as it should. Satisfied, he lets it fall and turns his gaze outward, toward the world beyond the wall. From this height, the land spreads wide and still. The fields lie pale beneath the moon, their furrows drawn in dark, straight lines. Farther off, the river gleams like a silver serpent uncoiling through the meadows, its coils catching stray threads of starlight. He lingers a while, his eyes moving slowly across that shadowed sweep of earth, seeking aught that stirs. Yet all is quiet. No spark of distant torch betrays a creeping foe, no glint of steel flashes in the moon's cold gaze. The peace of the hour wraps the world like a mantle, and he, its silent keeper, wears it also. At length he lifts the lantern once more and turns from the tower. His path leads onward, curving with the wall as it swings toward the northern face of the castle. Here the stones grow damp where mist from the river drifts upward in ghostly veils, clinging to the merlons and trailing thin fingers along the parapet. The air is cool upon his cheek, tasting faintly of water and the green life that stirs unseen below. A torch burns lonely in its bracket, its flame paling in the damp yet holding firm. Its light gleams upon the wet stone like a star upon dark glass. The watchman passes it by, and its warmth brushes him for an instant like the fleeting touch of a hand before it is gone. The wall stretches before him, long and level, its flags gleaming faintly where the mist has silvered them. His boots make soft music upon their breadth, a muted rhythm that seems to fall in time with the beating of the night's own heart. Now and then he pauses, leaning upon the cold parapet, lantern resting low at his side. He listens, gazing outward into the immensity of dark and silver, ears straining for any sound that should not be. But there is none. Only the whisper of the wind among the battlements, the faint hiss of a torch as its pitch feeds the flame, the far cry of a nightbird hunting in the fields. These are not sounds of fear, but of a world at rest, folded deep in the calm of slumber. He moves on. Time flows past him like a silent river, its waters unseen yet ever sliding onward. The hours of the watch are not swift. They do not leap, but creep with a stillness that is almost solemn. Yet in that stillness lies a curious peace, for there is no haste here. No clamouring of voices, no clang of arms. Only the long, slow breathing of stone and sky. The path leads him toward a smaller tower, little more than a turret set for archers in days of war. Now its arrow slits gape black and empty, their teeth long since dulled by years of peace. A torch flares beside its door, scattering sparks as the wind toys with the flame. He pauses there, resting his hand upon the latch, though he does not open it. There is no need. The place is secure, its secret sealed beneath the lock of iron and the weight of time. He lifts his lantern, and its glow runs along the wall like a slow tide of gold, kissing each stone in turn. The light glimmers in the damp, pools in hollows where the mortar has worn away, lingers upon the sharp edge of a merlon before slipping down into darkness. Shadows leap and sway with every step he takes, like silent ghosts dancing to the unheard music of the night. Beyond the wall, the forest seems nearer now, its mass looming black against the pallor of the sky. The wind stirs among its branches with a sound like breath drawn long and slow, like whispers that have no words. The watchman listens yet hears nothing more. The forest has always been thus, brooding, secret yet steadfast, as though it too keeps watch in its own shadowed way. He presses on, the long wall unrolling before him in patient silence. Far ahead, another torch pricks the dark, a lonely flame clinging to its iron post like a star stranded on earth. Toward this he walks, his pace unhurried, his thoughts drifting as lightly as the mist that curls along the parapet. He thinks of the dawn that waits beyond the rim of night, though it lies far yet. He thinks of the hearth fire in the guardroom, banked low but not dead. He thinks of the castle sleeping in its mighty calm, and of his own small place within its vast, enduring life. The torch draws nearer, its glow blooming like a flower in the gloom. The watchman reaches it at last and pauses there, lifting his lantern so that the two flames greet one another with trembling tongues of light. For a while he lingers, letting the warmth soak into his hands, feeling the life of the fire quicken the slow blood in his veins. Then, when he is ready, he turns again to the dark and moves onward, lantern swinging, boots whispering, cloak stirring softly in the breath of the night. The watchman follows the long wall until it curves inward, bending like a bow to meet the looming bulk of the north tower. It stands sentinel over the farthest gate, the one that opens toward the narrow track winding through the forest to the distant hills. Few travellers come by that way now, for the times are quiet, and the roads that once ran thick with merchants and messengers lie hushed in the silver slumber of the age. Yet the gate must be kept, as it always has been, for gates are the mouths of castles, and a mouth must never gape unguarded in the dark. The tower rises high, its mass black against the paler night. A single torch burns above its portal, casting a sluggish glow upon the timbers of the gate and the iron teeth of its hinges. Beneath that glow the studs glimmer dully, their heads worn smooth by seasons beyond count. The arch above yawns deep, swallowing the light into its hollow throat, where shadows cling like old cobwebs spun from night itself. The watchman halts upon the last flagstone of the wall and stands a moment in stillness, listening. The night presses close, deep and slow as sleep, yet within it every whisper is clear, the restless lick of flame upon resinous wood, the faint, patient drip of water somewhere in the unseen dark below, the long-drawn sigh of wind fingering the battlements. No footstep stirs beyond the wall. No voice calls from the fields. Only the earth breathing under the cool weight of stars. He lowers his lantern, and its mellow glow slides down the steps that coil like a stone ribbon into the tower's shadow. Slowly, he begins the descent. Each tread falls with a soft thud, hollow and measured, echoing faintly from the spiral throat. The air within is still and cool, smelling of dust and old iron, and thick with the silence that stones keep when they have stood long enough to forget the sound of speech. Down and down he goes, the lantern swinging, the shadows swaying with it, spilling across the curve of the wall like ink poured in slow eddies. At length he reaches the base, where a narrow door of oak and iron bars the passage. He sets the lantern on a ledge and draws forth the key, a weighty thing, black and pitted with age. The lock receives it with a groan like a sleeper stirred from dreams. The bolt slides, the door yields inward with a sigh, and he steps into the gatehouse. It is a chamber of stone, long and low, with rafters of smoke-dark timber arching above. Here hangs the smell of pitch and oil, of leather harness, and the faint ghost of horses long gone from their stalls. Racks line the walls, where spears stand in ordered ranks, and crossbows sleep beneath a film of dust. A bench sprawls near the hearth, but the hearth is cold, its ashes grey as frost. Only the lantern brings warmth, its small sun casting gold upon the chill grey stones. Across the chamber, the inner gate towers vast and stern, its planks thick as a man's arm, its bars great beams of oak shod with iron. The watchman moves toward it, boots whispering on the flags, and lays his hand upon the wood. It does not stir. The bars lie firm in their cradles, the bolts bite deep. Satisfied, he turns to the smaller door that opens upon the yard beyond. Its latch is sound, its hinges true. He draws the bolt with care, as though waking some old impatient beast, and eases the door ajar. A breath of night flows in, cool and sweet, scented faintly with grass and the resin of pine. He steps through and stands upon the threshold of the courtyard. The space spreads wide before him, a hollow square cupped in the arms of walls and towers. The stones underfoot gleam pale where the moon brushes them. Pools of shadow lie deep where the angles of the walls drink the light. At the court's heart broods the well, its curb of mossed stone dark as the mouth of sleep. Beside it squats a bucket, its hoops of iron fretted with rust, its rope trailing like a serpent into the unseen depth. Near the wall rises a trough, dry now, its timbers grey and splintered. Beyond looms the stable, its roof sagging under the weight of years, its door gaping like a blind mouth that has forgotten the taste of hay. The watchman crosses slowly, his steps ringing faint and hollow in the vast stillness. He pauses by the well and peers into its throat, where the water glimmers like a fragment of fallen moon. A thin thread of sound rises from that depth, the liquid whisper of drops falling one by one from some hidden ledge far below. He lingers, listening to that lonely cadence, until it seems the well itself is breathing in the dark. Then he moves on, lantern trailing a slow wake of gold across the flags. Against the farther wall, a tree thrusts upward, gnarled and stubborn, its roots clutching the stones like a miser his last coin. Its boughs writhe black against the sky, yet here and there the moon catches upon a twig and turns it to silver. Beneath its shade a bench crouches, worn and low, its timbers carved with names long since forgotten. The watchman rests his hand upon its back and feels the grooves like scars beneath his fingers. The garden lies near, though garden is a word of courtesy now, for the beds are rank with weeds and the paths choked with grass. Yet the shapes remain, the broken rim of a fountain, its basin dry, the stumps of posts where trellises once climbed, the faint scent of herbs gone wild, their breath still lingering in the cool night air. Somewhere among the tangle a flower opens pale as bone, nodding on its stem like a ghost at prayer. He moves slowly along the path, pausing now and then to let the silence speak. The castle sleeps, its great heart beating in time with the stars, and he alone is wakeful in its dream. Yet he does not feel alone. The stones are his companions, the wind is his brother, the moon his steadfast friend. All these keep the watch with him, and none will fail. At length he turns back toward the tower. The hour is deep, the night draws toward its silent noon, when even the owls doze on their boughs and the fox curls in his den. He climbs the spiral stair once more, feeling the cool breath of the stone close about him, hearing the hollow whisper of his steps coil upward in the dark. The lantern sways, the shadows leap and crouch like creatures born of night and fire. Then the door is behind him, the wall before, and the open sky above, vast and bright with frost of stars. He steps forth upon the rampart. The wind greets him, faint and chill, carrying the clean savour of fields asleep under the moon. He fills his lungs with it and feels the strength of stone and steel flow back into his limbs. The gate lies secure, the yard lies hushed, the night holds firm. He turns eastward, where the wall runs long and lonely toward the farthest tower, and begins his walk anew. The lantern swings, the cloak whispers, the boots fall soft, and the watch goes on. The night has worn deep, and the watchman feels it in the stillness that settles like fine dust upon the world. The stars seem lower now, as though they have bent nearer to listen to the breathing of the earth. The moon, that great sentinel in the sky, has drifted westward, dragging her silver train across the void, and her light lies slant upon the walls, long and pale and cold. The watchman pauses at the angle of the battlement and rests his gloved hands upon the rough-lipped stone. It is cool beneath his palms, cool and damp, beaded faintly with dew that gathers in the secret hours. He draws a breath and lets it go, slow and even, and watches the cloud of it melt into the air. Around him the silence hums, not with sound, but with the absence of it, a vast and tender hush that wraps the castle in a garment woven of shadows and frost. He turns his gaze outward to the world beyond the walls. There lies the forest, black as ink, its branches writing crooked runes upon the silver page of night. There lies the plain, sheeted in mist that pools like milk in every hollow, blurring the edge of earth and sky. Far off, a thread of water glimmers where the river winds, catching the moon in broken shards. And above it all, the heavens arch immense and clear, starred thick as frost upon a winter pane. The watchman moves on, slow and steady, his boots whispering against the flags. The lantern sways at his side, its glow a mellow bud of fire in the pale bloom of moonlight. The metal of its frame gleams like old gold, and the horn of its panels blushes faintly where the flame leans close. Shadows waver and run like dark water over the stones as he passes, spilling long and thin behind him, then folding back into the blackness from which they came. He comes to a tower and climbs its winding stair, each step a measured beat in the deep, soft music of the night. Upward and upward, past arrow slits where the sky peers in with a cold, curious eye, past loops of cobwebs strung like harp strings that never sound, past stones that smell of dust and age and the ghosts of fires long dead. At last the stair spills him out upon the roof, and the wind greets him with a quiet hand. Here the world lies vast beneath him, a dark sea frozen in the act of storm. The walls creep away like grey ribbons. The yard crouches hollow at their heart. The roofs huddle close, their angles steeped in shadow. Beyond the forest broods, its endless tide of boughs rippling under the breath of the wind, and far on the rim of sight the hills ride like sleeping beasts along the sky. He crosses to the parapet and stands a long while gazing east. There, beyond the jagged teeth of the hills, the first thin thread of dawn begins to stir. A paling of the black, a dim whisper of grey, faint as the memory of a dream half forgotten. The stars above it flicker like weary sentinels who long for sleep. The watchman notes it, and a slow breath of peace fills him, for the night is yielding, as all nights yield. And the day is not far. Yet his task is not done. He moves along the parapet, pausing at each angle, peering down into the wells of shadow where wall meets ground. All is still, the grass crouches under its blanket of frost, the trees stand dumb, the gate towers brood with bars clenched like teeth. Only the wind stirs, a long, slow murmur that creeps among the stones and whispers through the crenels like a voice grown drowsy with its own song. The watchman lowers himself upon a bench set in the lee of the parapet. The wood is worn smooth by many nights, and it yields beneath his weight with a sigh like an old man easing into rest. He sets the lantern on the stone beside him and draws his cloak close, for the breath of dawn is chill and damp. The flame peers through the horn in a soft, amber gaze, and the shadows huddle close about it as though for warmth. He rests his elbows on his knees and lets his eyes wander to the sky. The east is whitening now, a slow blush that steals across the rim of the world like shy delight upon a maiden's cheek. The grey melts to pearl, the pearl to rose, the rose deepens and blooms like a flower opening in silence. High above, the stars shrink back, paling, trembling, then winking out one by one till only the steadfast planet hangs like a dewdrop in the vast blue cup of heaven. The wind freshens, bringing with it the smell of earth and leaf, the faint far sound of water laughing in some unseen brook, the rustle of a bird stirring in its dream. From the woods comes a call, thin, sweet, broken, a thrush fluting to the morn. Another answers, and another, till the air throbs with a weaving of notes clear as crystal, pure as prayer. The watchman listens, and his heart fills with that quiet joy which has no name, the joy of simple things enduring. The light strengthens. The hills grow sharp, carved clean against the sky, their summits flush with gold. The mist rolls and curls like smoke from a dying fire, breaking to show the fields beneath, all grey and gleaming with dew. The forest lifts its 1,000 spears of green, and every blade of grass stands tipped with silver flame. The castle walls leap from shadow into glow, the towers burn like torches of pale bronze. The night is gone. The day is come. The watchman rises and takes the lantern in his hand. Its glow is pale now, a ghost beside the splendour of the sun, yet still it burns, faithful to the last. He turns and walks the wall once more, slowly, gravely, as befits the ending of a vigil. His boots fall with a sound that is almost silence. His cloak flows behind him like a dark wing folded for sleep. He comes to the stair and goes down, leaving the dawn to blaze upon the stones where his shadow stretched through the long hours past. The guardroom waits below, dim and cool, its hearth cold, its bench lonely. He sets the lantern upon the board and loosens the clasp of his cloak. The weight slips from his shoulders, and with it the weight of night. He stands a moment, breathing the still air, and lets the hush of the place sink into him. Then, with steps as soft as the drifting of a dream, he passes through the door and is gone, leaving only the lantern's eye to blink its last in the slow grey light of morning. And so the watch ends. The castle sleeps still, though the day has kissed its brow. The stones keep their counsel. The wind hums low in the eaves. Far away, a cock lifts his voice, and the hills fling back the echo like a silver trumpet. But here, in the heart of the fortress, all is calm. All is sure. All is safe. The night is past. The world wakes. And peace flows deep as the roots of the mountains.